All right, guys, we're going to start this program soon. Hope that 3-day weekend was enjoyable. For the most part, pretty good weather, right? Today's show is busy. I mean, we have college football is back. University of Virginia got a victory. Excellent for the economy locally. Certainly, we all know we need that. We're going to talk college football today. Hokies took it on the chin to ODU. Man, Old Dominion is a giant killer. The Monarchs are giant killers. And Virginia fans, and many who watch this program know I'm a UVA fan. Week 3, third week of the season, Old Dominion's in Charlottesville. Now the Hoos travel to Illinois next week, to Champaign. But when they come back, Saturday, September 17th, they got ODU. And that's not a team you want to overlook. We'll talk a little college football today. We'll talk auto loan delinquencies on the rise. We called this on the show. Scott Morris was the first to bring this up. Auto loan delinquencies are becoming a problem. We'll talk about that on today's program. We'll chitter-chatter on today's show. A fantastic potential project for Scottsville. Now, I think this project is certainly gonna rally the NIMBYs. The tire plant in Scottsville, an afterthought. It used to be the major employer in Scottsville. Now it's an afterthought. A developer is planning some apartments for an afterthought building. And downtown Scottsville, maybe James River Brewery, some of the businesses in downtown Scottsville, having additional density is going to be positive for these businesses that have few residents to support them, to support the businesses. Let me see what the Scottsville, Virginia population is. I'm going to actually look this up before the show starts. Scottsville's population at the 2010 census was 566 people. 566. In 2019, it was estimated at 618. So if you're a brewery like James River Brewery, that's not a ton of people. We'll talk about that on today's program, the tire plant. We're going to talk about this Bank of America lending program that undoubtedly went viral on the I Love CVille network over the 3-day weekend. You with us? Okay. We'll chatter that today on the program. Bill McChenzie, hello. Johnny Ornalis, hello. Scott Aaronworth, thank you for sending us this auto loan story. We appreciate you on that. We love crowdsourced content. We very much love crowdsourced content. Give the show a like and a share if you could do us a favor. Hey, Bob Yarborough, we love you, homie. We hope you enjoyed Decipher with that beautiful bride of yours. It looked like you guys were having a good time over there. College football, I'm sure you're happy about this. Bob, I'd love to get your take. And you've offered your take on the BOA program on Friday and over the weekend, and your take is respected on this show. Bob Yarborough spent a number of years, if not longer, working for Habitat for Humanity National. So this guy's got so much skin in the game. And his perspective is valued on the show. He's the king of Redfields. Travis is watching in Danville. What's up, T? What's up, Travis? Welcome to the program, homie. Hit that share button if you could for us. That would mean the world to us. Johnny, thank you for doing that. Johnny's the king of Guadalajara and El Mariachi. We love you, J.O. We love you, homie. Judah Wickauer is our director. We love this guy, too. Judah, you put the BOA lending program on my radar last week. And good night. Did you see the response over the 3-day weekend?
I certainly did. It's pretty amazing.
Pretty significant viral response there.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to have some fun today on the program. We can rock and roll, J-Dubs, when you're ready. Kevin Higgins, hello.
Quiet on the set.
Good Tuesday afternoon, guys. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille show. Thank you kindly for joining us. An absolute pleasure to connect with you after a fabulous 3-day weekend. I hope you recharged the batteries as much as we did. True pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille network, where our audience is Charlottesville, Central Virginia, Commonwealth, country, and worldwide. This show is dynamic, where you, the viewer and the listener, can offer perspective on our many social media channels, and your perspective will often be relayed live on air. In fact, it'll turn into topics often on the show. Scott Airworth, the king of Virginia Beach, he's an Esquire extraordinaire. He's watching right now at the beach, and he sent us a topic about, what, Scott? An hour ago? And I thought it was fantastic. We worked the topic in today's show. It's about auto loans and how a lot of folks are defaulting on them. It's vulnerable out there. It is a precarious situation, the American economy. And if there's any saving grace, it's the fortitude and the will of us as Americans to plow through uncertainty and vulnerability and to figure this darn thing out. And I think that's what we're trying to do right now. I mean, the markets are in turmoil. Today is as volatile a trading day as you'll find. You got 3 weeks of losses. All the gains earned this summer are gone. Undoubtedly a bear market. What we thought was a rally this summer looks like a bear market rally now. And labor shortages are prevalent, certainly in the food and beverage industry. Jerome Powell and the Fed, the expectation is 0.75 of a basis point increase. That's going to increase, that's going to impact all of us with credit card debt. Any kind of floating debt is about to be much more difficult to manage with Powell raising rates. Expect the housing ecosystem to continue to soften. While there is not a direct connection with what Powell is doing in a 15 fixed or a 30-year fixed mortgage rate, there is undoubtedly an indirect correlation. So those rates are going to go up. It's going to soften and cool the market even more. We're going to talk all these topics on today's show. We'll talk the Scottsville tire plant. You got a town of 600 plus people, 618 according to the 2019 census. And we got a developer that wants to take the tire plant and put apartments in there. Now, you're going to have one side of Scottsville say, no way, Jose. Very much the not in my backyard mentality. Concerned about density, infrastructure impacts, road impacts. Frankly, some folks just like the peace and quiet. I get that. I totally understand that. The flip side of the coin is the merchant in downtown Scottsville, on Main Street in Scottsville. Would the merchant, the mom and pop, the James River Brewery, the locally owned businesses in Scottsville not like to have some more folks within walking distance of their businesses? Of course they would. We've had Nancy Gill on this show before. She's the former mayor of Scottsville, and in fact, I'll reach back in touch with Nancy to get her on the program. And she's indicated multiple times that she's got a great podcast, Nancy Gill, the James Exchange. This is where I got this piece of news from. Nancy, you do a hell of a job. And she said a number of times on her podcast she would like to see more density in Scottsville, and she'd like to see more people to support the town. Because right now the town is struggling from an employer standpoint. Where are the jobs? People are commuting to the epicenter of employment in Central Virginia, and that's the city of CVille. And that commute, it ain't for everybody. I mean, you got a long drive on 20. You got a long drive on 20 where trucks are humming, where blind turns are prevalent. So we'll talk about this development in Scottsville, the tire factory plan, and what could be apartments heading there. We'll chitter-chatter on today's show millennials and Gen Zers living with parents. They call them boomerang kids. That's a moniker I'd yet to hear. We saw during the pandemic a number of millennials and Gen Zers move back in with their parents. And they did that because the cost of living was becoming too great. Inflation was out of control. They were losing jobs. The disposable income just was not there. We'll relay that story to you. We'll give you some highlights from what we saw at the Virginia football game. Hell of a victory for the Wahoos. Richmond, I knew, was going to put up a fight. I mean, the first week of a college football season, anything can happen. Anything can happen. You got two schools in the Commonwealth, and Virginia Tech and UVA, your flagship football programs that have a lot in common. They both have new head coaches, and they're both searching for an identity. UVA is trying to prove to all of us that it can show a consistent level of play on the defensive side of the ball. We know Brennan Armstrong is talented. He's a quarterback that should be a Heisman Trophy shortlist candidate. We know their wide receiving core is dynamic and as deep a wide receiving core as you will find in any in the country. The question marks are on the defensive side of the ball. We'll talk Virginia football. We'll talk Hokie football on today's show. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Scott Stadium was extremely empty. The upper bowl, the top tier, the top level at Scott Stadium, completely empty. So empty that first-year head coach Tony Elliott said after the game, guys, all of us on the sideline saw the stadium a third empty. We got to do better than this if we're going to beat some of these programs in the ACC and contend for a conference championship. That topic on today's show, including a very interesting one. Should Scott Stadium be reduced in size and seating capacity? I hate to say it, but that's perhaps something that should be considered. Now you're going to say it's going to cost a lot of money to do that, and I totally get it. But how much money is the University of Virginia Athletic Department spending in marketing a 64,000 seat stadium? And when Saturday happens and you see what? Maybe 37, 38,000 people? Maybe? And you see 25,000 empty seats? That's not a good look. We'll talk that on today's show. Kevin Higgins, I'll relay this comment about George Welsh live on air when we get to sports on today's program. A lot I want to cover on today's show. Kevin Yancey in Waynesboro, welcome to the show. Folks in Short Pump, welcome to the show. Williamsburg, welcome to the show. Crozet, North Downtown, welcome to the show. Keswick, watching today's broadcast. McLean, Arlington, Nashville, Pennsylvania. Folks outside Asheville, North Carolina on the show. Judah, let's go to the two-shot. Let's welcome you to the program. 3-day weekend treat you all right?
Yeah, not too bad.
Charge those batteries?
Yeah.
You sent me the Bank of America lending program topic last week. Mm-hmm. And we started talking this topic last week. You and I both had some concerns.
Yeah, definitely.
Then we posted the topic on the I Love CVille network, and it went viral. You saw it on my Facebook page. As we explained throughout that thread on the Facebook page, there's 15 Facebook pages, 15 Twitter accounts, LinkedIn, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. No one knows this more than you. This content is everywhere. We talked about our concerns about the program, specifically when it came to down payments and when it came to no credit scores. I'll relay the broad strokes and then we'll give our analysis. I mentioned this in the thread on my personal Facebook page. You and I are not journalists.
Right.
We don't want to be journalists.
No.
I was a journalist. Bob Yarborough, watching this program, was a journalist. That's a difficult profession. I work for the Daily Progress for NBC 29 and Monticello Media, as you know. Very meager pay. Terrible hours. And the industry's gotten worse from when I was there, 2002 to, heck, I don't know, 2014, something along those lines. We're not journalists. We offer our perspective and our commentary and our thoughts, Judah, right, on what we read.
Yep.
What we crave is more local news.
Yeah.
And why we crave more local news, I'm curious of why you do. Me personally, I'd like to know what's going on in the community. I'd like to learn. And on top of that, it's a great foundation for a talk show like this, J-Dubs. Mm-hmm. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, the reason I would love more news is because, yeah, you want to know what's going on with the community. You want to know what your leaders are doing. You want to know what decisions are being made in the in the city, the county, in the area, and it's just how do you live in a city and not know what's going on?
We're in a news desert right now.
Yeah.
So much so that the Scottsville apartment story we're going to relay from the tire plant, I think we're going to be the first to relay that news to this community.
Okay.
Now, you and I both know, because we see their IP addresses on our heat map, that both TV stations watch this show for content for their 6 o'clock and their 11 o'clock news. We both know the weekly newspaper is watching this show for content for their publication. And we know the Daily Progress watches this show for content for their publication. The Daily Progress has one reporter on staff right now. Judah, she's completely new to the area. She's very young and very green. And the expectation is for her to cover the University of Virginia beat, the Albemarle County beat, the Charlottesville City beat, the outer county beats, like Fluvanna, Louisa,
Yeah.
Orange, Greene, Madison,
I don't know how that's
Lawrenceville.
possible.
How is it possible? She can't do it.
Nobody
And
could.
No
I
one
think
could.
there's a
I'm
better
not.
point.
I'm not throwing shade on her.
I know.
No one could.
Yeah.
No one could do it. So we'll try to get news in the news cycle. The Scottsville apartment story is a good one. But before we get to that, let's get to the Bank of America story. Bank of America is launching a new mortgage product that will allow first-time home buyers to purchase a home with no down payment, no mortgage insurance, and zero closing costs, Judah.
Yeah.
Bank of America, in an effort to close the racial home ownership gap, will launch this program in predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhoods, specifically Charlotte, Dallas, Detroit, Los Angeles, and Miami. No minimum credit score is required for this program. Instead, other factors for eligibility will be considered. One of those factors for eligibility is rental payment history.
Mm-hmm.
Bank of America has promised, Judah, that they will vet these candidates closely.
Yeah.
And how they'll vet them is bill payment history, electric, water, cable, cell phone, and rental payment history.
Mm-hmm.
Do you make your rent payments on time?
Right.
While this program is genuinely, actually, I'm going to take that back. I'm not even sure if Bank of America is being genuine here. I don't think I can say that with confidence and conviction.
I don't think anybody can. There are some indications that they are being genuine. I mean, first of all, the fact that there's no mortgage insurance, that doesn't affect the buyer.
And if anything, it lowers the buyer's payment.
Yeah.
The mortgage insurance, if you don't put 20% down on a house when you purchase it, you have to pay a mortgage insurance payment every month until you get to that 20% clip.
Yeah.
And you want to know how dirty some of the lenders are?
Yeah, we've heard.
Once you get to 20% equity,
They'll keep charging you unless you call them and tell them to stop.
exactly. Judah's a smart man.
That's pretty dirty.
Isn't that dirty?
Yeah.
And you know why they can do that? Because it says it in the contract. You have to notify them to stop it.
Yeah.
We'll keep charging you.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to 20% equity. If you don't pick up the phone or send the email to your lender and say, hey, I'm at the 20% mark, stop the PMI, you still get popped.
Yeah.
Look, before I get into the nitty-gritty about the lending program, I want to start by saying this. The big banks and the financing vehicles, everything they do, Judah, I watch and analyze extremely closely with an eye or a mentality or a perspective of not giving them the benefit of the doubt. Instead, my eye or my perspective and my mentality is, how are they going to screw me? How are they going to screw me?
Mm-hmm.
The track record is not a good one. And when we see programs like this, human nature, Judah, is immediately, is this 2008 and 2009 and 2010 all over again?
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, it's a fair leap of logic to go to that, since obviously there are some similarities.
Right. So here's my beef. And then we'll get to local feedback on this lending program. Local feedback that was put all over my Facebook page over the 3-day weekend. Obvious concerns. I want you to get into that big, beautiful brain of yours. Let's say the program finds a family. This family is African American family, a Hispanic family. The candidate, Bank of America, is trying to, we hope, champion and give a hand up.
Yeah.
Not a handout, but a hand up. That's the whole idea, the whole premise of Bank of America's lending program. We're going to give disenfranchised families, folks living on the financial margin, a hand up and help them.
Yeah.
My beef with this is a home, much like a vehicle, much like a boat, much like the websites you and I design and develop. What do they all require?
Upkeep.
Upkeep. Maintenance. And upkeep and maintenance costs
Time and money.
time and money. So my trepidation, and I want you to jump in here. My trepidation is this. If you give a family a hand up,
There may be a little bit of handout involved as well from what I've read, but go on.
if you give this family this hand up and you say, hey, you now own this house in Detroit, this house in Los Angeles, this house in Charlotte and Dallas, in Tinseltown in Los Angeles, in Miami. Here are the keys to your new house. Here's your monthly payment. We vetted your rental history. We vetted your bill paying history. And we're confident you can pay this mortgage even though you can't afford a down payment on this house. My concern is this, and Paul MacArthur explained this extremely well on my Facebook page. Mm-hmm. Paul's the king of the South Side, a man of common sense. What happens if your roof needs replacement?
Yeah.
What happens if your HVAC units go bust? What happens if you have a water leak, a plumbing issue, a flood?
Yeah.
What happens if your appliances go down? What happens if the homes drop in value because Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve are on the brink of sending our country, our nation, the United States of America, into a recession? All these are likely scenarios. We're not pulling a rabbit out of the hat and saying, what if? We're pulling common sense out of the hat, and we're basing it on us, all of us as homeowners, of stuff we've gone through ourselves. A couple of months ago, my wife found this. The water in our basement, our hot water heater, busted. Came down to the basement, water everywhere, J-Dubs.
Oy.
It was gross. Damaged photos, stuff in storage, just a nasty mess.
Yeah.
We ended up replacing the hot water heater, an old one that was original to the house, with a tankless water heater, a much smaller unit.
Mm-hmm.
That project, start to finish, cost us just over $6,000. Just over $6,000 to do that. Had we have not have done that, and had we have not of repaired the damage of a hot water tank leaking in the basement, we would have had mold all over our basement. We do not now. We would have had water damage all over the lower level of our house. And we wouldn't have been able to get hot water for baths for our 4.5-year-old. Homes require maintenance. That's common sense. Maintenance costs money. That's common sense. If the down payment is not a reality for the homeowners in these 5 cities, how will they be able to afford the maintenance on the house? I'll stop talking. I'd love to hear what you have to say on this. I trust your opinion and judgment, Judah.
Well, I read something interesting that as part of its program, Bank of America said it will make a down payment on behalf of the borrowers in grants of $10,000 to $15,000, depending on the city, which obviously will give borrowers some equity in the home. Now, I can't imagine having to turn around within a year and try to take some of that money out. But you're right. I mean, if somebody hasn't, no matter how on time someone has been with rent payments and utility payments, they haven't been able to save up even 1%. And this is nothing. We're not disparaging these people, and we love the fact that we love the idea of getting them into homes because that's what we all want. It might not, as we've heard before, buying a home may not be for everyone. I think it's Ray Cadell that often says that. But if somebody wants to buy a home, it's great to make that option available to them. But putting someone in a home and not giving them a means to, take care of a problem that arises, like a hot water heater busting in the basement, or anything, an HVAC
roof.
unit going out. Yeah.
I mean, the roof. And as Carol Thorpe, the Queen of Jack Jewish, said, it's not when a problem is going to arise. It's not if a problem is going to arise. It's when. Keep going.
I'm less worried about the housing market, the price of houses. I think we've heard from enough people recently on the real estate show that that despite the rise in house prices recently, nobody's looking at houses taking a massive drop in value. I'm less worried about that for these people, but yeah, it's just it comes at a time when this seems worrisome. Like, is this really the best path to take right now?
Here's a good example. A mom and dad looking to help their son or daughter. Mom and dad looking to help their son or daughter, and their son or daughter needs a car or a vehicle, an automobile to get around. That car, that vehicle, that automobile that they give the son or daughter, maybe it's the family vehicle, the third vehicle, the second vehicle that's not used anymore because mom and dad are retired now. And mom and dad get around in one vehicle now instead of two. That vehicle, sitting around in the driveway, the garage, not driven as much as it used to be, has some wear and tear and some age. You come with the approach of being genuine. Let's help our son or our daughter by giving them this vehicle. But once you give the title to your son or daughter for that vehicle, your son or daughter is now responsible for the maintenance of that ride.
Along with other things like
Taxes.
registration,
taxes. Let's say you give your son or daughter a vehicle that is one of these older model luxury vehicles that few mechanics know how to work on. When you give that vehicle to your son or daughter, Your son or daughter may have a way now to get from point A to B a lot faster, might not need to rely on Uber, walking, or public transportation even more. But if that vehicle has some age and it's one of these luxury automobiles, it's going to cost your son or daughter a considerable amount of money to maintain that vehicle.
Yeah.
Oil changes, inspections, tires. I just had my Ford Explorer inspected. 4 new tires. $900. $900
Yeah.
for 4 new tires.
Yeah.
That is not cheap. The concern both of us have, and we stipulate on this show so many times, we want everyone to have a shot at owning a home. It's your best path to generational wealth.
Yeah.
You freeze your monthly payment while inflation is driving the rental market out of control. But let's not wrap a patty of ground beef in bacon and put a bunch of nice asparagus and loaded baked potatoes around it and call it a steak dinner. Let's call a spade a spade. We all realize a house is costly to maintain. And if a 1% down payment on a $200,000 home is $2,000, and a 1% down payment on a $300,000 home is $3,000, and if the down payment ability is not there for the buyer, how does the buyer afford the $7,000 HVAC unit, the $10,000 to $20,000 roof, the appliances that undoubtedly popped in cost during COVID because they were few and far between? And as Carol Thorpe, the Queen of Jack Jewett, just put it in the feed, real estate taxes must be paid too.
Yep.
When you're the tenant and you're making your rental payments on time, you pay your rent to your landlord. Your landlord's taking care of your roof. Your landlord's repairing your appliances. And your landlord's making sure the technician is keeping the HVAC unit up to speed, and if it's not, that unit will be replaced on the landlord's dime. The landlord's paying your taxes on that rental as well. Commercial property is different. Many of you who watch this program know I own a fair amount of commercial property. Triple net leases where the tenant is covering the taxes, the upkeep, and everything are not prevalent in residential real estate, residential rental real estate. It is unrealistic to expect someone making timely rental payments to be able to segue into home ownership without speed bumps and hiccups. I also want to emphasize this. The timing of the Bank of America program, I find perplexing. Here's why I find it perplexing. This announcement was done at a time when the housing ecosystem nationally has completely cooled. And cooled is an understatement. It's stone cold Steve Austin right now.
Yeah.
Bank of America created a program to find new customers when their current customer base is showing disinterest in their lending vehicles. So when the marketplace shows disinterest in something, it's up to a business to find a way to generate incremental revenue. So one of the ways they're choosing to generate incremental revenue is by pursuing loan applicants that otherwise would never have met their criteria. Coincidence? No. Do you believe it's a coincidence?
It would be hard. It'd be hard sell to make the jump that that's coincidence.
Right?
I think some people have made good points that that not putting down a down payment on a house makes the interest payments that much larger over the course of the loan, which means more money for the bank than they would normally be getting from a normal
20% down
a normal
payment.
applicant.
Yeah.
And another issue is, does the bank profit in the end if the person ends up underwater,
Underwater.
Do they take the house back?
Yes.
And keep all the money?
Yes.
And then sell it again?
Yes.
That's something that remains to be seen, but it's not something that we want to see with people in this type of situation.
Right. Common sense from Judah B. Wickower. Now, the response on our particular Facebook page was overwhelming. The content undoubtedly went viral. I was sitting at the pool yesterday, reading the content, and probably had, I don't know, 30 to 35 people walk by and say something like, "We're popping the popcorn, reading your thread, seeing what's next." We had one particular realtor, I won't utilize her name, who spent much of her Labor Day commenting on my Facebook page. Did you see that?
Without knowing the name, I would guess that I read through it.
Throughout the entire day, post after post after post after post. I wasn't even sure what her mission was, what she was going for. I'm grateful for her posts. Whether she realized this or not, she's doing us a favor by amplifying the content, engaging with the content. That's our goal, is to have our content seen far and wide, and she certainly took it to a different level.
And we encourage discussion.
We love discussion. We have no problem if you disagree with us. We want you to, because we learn from both sides.
Yep.
So I'm grateful to her. Thank you for doing that. My fear is that in hard times, the weak get exploited.
Yeah. I don't think it even takes hard times.
Anytime?
Unfortunately.
It's unfortunate. You have the most sophisticated, biggest bank
Yep.
offering financing vehicles at a time when their financing department is stone cold Steve Austin, freezing cold.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, air quotes, the financing vehicle comes at a time when loan origination is way down.
Mm-hmm.
Hell of a coincidence there, right, J-Dubs?
It would seem to be a hell of a coincidence.
Hell of a coincidence. Now, I want to highlight some things. There's undoubtedly some people who will find success with this program.
Yeah, no doubt.
There are some families that will find success for this program. And those families will thank Bank of America for this opportunity. But common sense would tell you more families will be burned than benefited from this program.
Especially with what we're seeing in the financial world coming on the horizon.
Exactly right.
It just doesn't seem a good time for,
Powell's going to raise 3/4 of a basis point this month.
Yeah.
It's going to make the housing industry even colder. 3/4 of a basis point is going to have tremendous impact on people's credit card debt. Your credit card debt is tied to prime. It's floating debt. That's why your credit card payments are so much more difficult to make and meet right now than they were during the pandemic.
Yeah.
The rates are way higher. At a time when credit card debt is at an all-time high for America, at a time when interest rates on that credit card debt is at an all-time high for America, at a time when inflation is making the cost of goods difficult to afford, at a time when supply chain is making those cost of goods difficult to find, at a time when labor is so short, you can't find those goods served or given to you because people can't put them on plates or on shelves. BOA rolls out a program that targets families on the financial margin that historically are preyed upon. They certainly were in 2008, 2009, and 2010. You speak about wealth gaps. That gap undoubtedly widened because of the housing recession of 2008, 9, and 10.
I don't see that happening here as much. There's, as someone pointed out, there's just not the
There's more equity in people's homes. There's much stricter lending requirements
now. There's not the range of what happened back then. I just don't think, this doesn't have the scope to affect so many people that it causes another 2008, 2009. That doesn't mean it's not a bad idea. But I don't think this in itself is going to bring about another another housing crisis like that did. However, we are staring down the barrel of a recession, which has its own.
You don't think there's a chance that I'm just speaking out loud here? You don't think that there's a chance home values will drop?
There's a chance they'll drop, but I still don't think the scope of this project is large enough that it's going to cause another 2008, 2009. That doesn't mean it doesn't have its own problems going into what may be, an upcoming recession.
Devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show?
Sure.
You and I agree on this topic. Devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. Bank of America is rolling out this program. And test markets, 5 cities. I rattled them off to you. What? Mm-hmm. Charlotte, Los Angeles, Detroit, LA. I already said LA. Miami, Dallas. Would common sense not suggest that the other banks would now roll out similar vehicles to compete with a direct competitor? If you were one of the other banks in our country and you see Bank of America gaining momentum with this program, do you not expect the other banks to roll out similar strategies in financing vehicles?
They could. I
it's
think
a copycat world we live in.
How much, though, do you think the BOA program is pushed by the government? Because I think that would make it less likely that other banks would immediately jump on and just start handing out money.
Brittany Gray, she's a realtor, she's watching this program. She says there is too short of inventory this season. That is the primary difference between 2008 and right now. She's exactly right. There was a glut of inventory in 2008 where right now we're under inventory. It's a great point by her. She says this is a stunt. This is clearly a political stunt. Bob Yarborough, he's the king of Redfields. He's got, Bob, is it 2+ decades with Habitat for Humanity National? He's come on the show. I respect this man as much as anyone that watches this program, Bob Yarborough. He leaves this comment. Facing the prospect of repairs and maintenance and the ownership of those issues is a challenge for all first-time homebuyers, regardless of income. Habitat for Humanity affiliates face this challenge. It is a tough one. They offer homebuyer education. Most affiliates require it. Many affiliates offer financial coaching and guidance. Some suggest a maintenance savings account and assist with setup. Lenders can't usually require a maintenance escrow account, though in the old days we did. This is risky business. What Bank of America may not offer is post-closing support, but I don't know yet. As for timing, my guess is this program is a couple of years in the making, and the other big difference is HFH charges zero to little interest. Banks face CRA requirements, and my guess is this is a way to address that requirement. 20 years he spent with Habitat for Humanity National. Thank you for that comment, Bob. Judah and I, viewers and listeners, I think we have one thing in common. And I don't like to speak for people, but in this particular circumstance, I'm going to speak for all of you. Neither of us want 2008 to happen again.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to cause that. I mean, that was literally millions of people getting loans, getting bad loans. This does not have the size to have that effect.
What happens if the keeping up with the Joneses effect becomes a reality and other banks copycat this financing vehicle? Who wants to bet some smackaroos that other banks will offer something similar in the near future? Anyone want to take that bet? Viewers and listeners, do you want to take that bet?
They certainly could, but I think by the time they start, there's going to be more information coming out about what's happened with the BOA loans, and we'll have a better stance.
I don't think so.
From which to look at this.
I think the BOA loans, we won't know the true collateral damage of the BOA loans for a little bit of time. The foreclosures or the defaults because of home price depreciation or because of major maintenance issues are not going to happen in the first few months of the financing.
That's fair.
We're probably going to be seeing the collateral damage, if there is any, next year or the year after.
But they're also not going to be giving out loans to millions upon millions of people within that time frame either.
We don't know that either.
Well, they're rolling it out in
5 cities.
Areas.
Those cities are pretty big.
But how big is the available housing there?
We don't know that either. I would imagine the available housing in Detroit, who has seen some better days, is pretty significant.
Okay.
I would also imagine if other banks roll this out, we could see more people finance this way.
We certainly could.
When it's all said and done, we want the same damn thing. We don't want a foreclosure crisis.
No.
And anything I've seen so far over the last few years, this is the closest thing that I've seen that could lead to foreclosures. What have we seen in the last few years that is closer to foreclosures than this?
I mean, people not being able to work for a year was pretty harsh on, I'm sure, paying mortgages.
That's fair. A lot of folks work from home, though.
Yeah.
And the folks that weren't able to work because they were service industry, hospitality, or music.
Probably didn't have homes.
Exactly.
I know.
Probably weren't homeowners. What's the closest thing you've seen to foreclosure so far over the last few years? No down payment, no credit check. We'll look at your rental history and whether you pay your Verizon bill on time. You pay your Dominion bill, your water bill, and you get to the check to the landlord before the 5th of the month, you got a loan. Ray Cadell says it best. home ownership's not for everyone. And that's not a knock on anyone.
No.
That's just reality. Let's get to some comments. There's a lot of comments coming in. Oh, man. Comments. Kevin Yancey in Waynesboro. Bank of America is targeting the less qualified to generate mortgages. This is destined to fail, to create shareholder value. Kevin Yancey says, how many mortgages will other mortgage companies have to absorb with the 3 bankruptcies and another just flat out closing? Are you convinced that home values won't drop?
I'm not convinced that they won't drop, but I don't think they're going to drop drastically.
I'll follow up this question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it the worst is still to come?
The worst of?
Economic difficulty.
Oh, I'd say it's pretty high.
Me too.
I mean, we're looking at a cold winter for Europe, sadly.
Russia, tell them what Russia's doing.
Russia is not going to, well,
threatening.
They're not threatening. They've turned off the pipes. They've told Europe that they're not going to turn them back on unless Europe drops the sanctions against them. I don't know the exact details, but obviously they want the sanctions dropped from the West.
Yeah.
And they're not going to continue giving oil. The EU, I think, is looking at. I think it might have been England that was looking at 80% increase in heating prices.
You got Russia leveraging Europe with energy.
Yeah.
You got China in COVID lockdowns.
Not to mention...
it's real estate over-leveraged times most over-leveraged real estate you can think of. Look at China. In this country, this month you got Powell raising rates 0.75 of a basis points this month. You got the highest credit card debt in American history right now. Scott Aaronworth, the Esquire from Virginia Beach, sent us this link about auto repos. Thank you, Scott. Auto loan delinquencies and repossessions are at a high.
Yeah. And that's something where the price went up a great deal and is probably headed way down.
People are going to stop buying these cars because they don't have the money to do it. And when they stop buying these cars because the economic climate's hitting the pooper, the value of vehicles are going to drop. And when the value of vehicles drop, anyone who's purchased a car in the last 18 months at these inflated values, their loans are going to be underwater on their cars.
Quite possibly.
If you bought a car in the last 18 months, hope to God, pray to God, whoever is your higher power, that this doesn't happen, because that monthly payment on your vehicle, you're going to be paying a monthly nut on something that doesn't even hold that value anymore.
Yeah.
Look at the KPIs, the key performance indicators out there, boys and girls. No one on this talk show professes to be the smartest people in the room. What we are is well-read individuals with common sense. 1 + 1 = 2, and A, B, C, D comes after C. It's just common sense people reading the news. That's all we do. When your credit card debt is at an all-time high for American history, when your Fed chair is about to raise rates on that credit card debt 0.75 of a basis point, what's going to happen to the American bank account? The dollar ain't going to go as far. If the dollar ain't going to go as far, what are Americans going to do? They're going to buy less. Demand's going to go down.
Tighten their belts.
They're going to tighten the belt. The auto industry, the vehicle value is going to drop. To be determined on the housing. To be determined on the housing. One thing you can say with confidence and conviction is the financing for the housing is at a snowy, avalanche, Stone Cold Steve Austin halt. It's freezing out there. Is it not?
Yeah, I would guess it is.
The days on market are getting long. This is common sense. This is common sense. Kevin Yancey, China has 200,000 people paying mortgages on condominiums that are 50% finished right now.
They call them ghost towns.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
It's
You read about
insanity.
that, right?
Oh yeah,
Tell them about the ghost towns. I read about that. A lot of people don't know about these ghost towns.
I mean, it's just a game. It's not even real. I mean, Chinese real estate companies are basically building high-rise apartment buildings, like block after block after block after block after block of high-rise apartment buildings out in the middle of nowhere. And then, because real estate is the biggest investment you can make in China, that's what everybody puts their money into. You're buying an apartment that's never going to be used. And the idea is that you hold on to it for a year or two and then you turn around and sell it. But now that the game is up,
it's a house of cards.
Who's going to keep buying them?
It's a house of cards.
It's absolutely nuts.
It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this. I really, really hate to say this. But America is extremely tied to China.
Yeah.
Extremely tied to China.
Oh, yeah. China's been buying our debt, and I'm pretty sure a lot of Wall Street is using Chinese bonds and stocks as collateral. There's way too much over-leveraging in the world financial market right now. It's terrifying.
Agreed. All right. It's 1:30, and I got a couple other topics I need to relay to you. We'll continue the Bank of America lending program all week long. We will follow the Bank of America lending program throughout the rest of the year. We will watch to see if Bank of America's competitors offer similar programs. My instinct and hunch is yes, it will happen. As the housing market cools because rates increase, the financing companies will need to find new customers. And unfortunately, they're pursuing subprime customers now.
Yeah.
A subprime customer is a customer who has a credit score below a certain number. And the ones Bank of America are pursuing right now with this new program are undoubtedly, on paper, subprime customers. They don't have credit scores or they have bad credit. Those are facts. Facts, what I just said. Will Bank of America's competitors pursue other subprime customers? My bet is yes. I will follow it, and so will Judah. More topics we need to get to. Judah, this is unreported right now. There's not a news outlet that has talked about this right now. I'm going to spend 60 seconds talking about this with the hope that the TV stations, the weekly newspaper, and the one reporter at the Daily Progress hears this and starts to cover it. Please, editors at the Daily Progress, write about what I'm about to say. NBC 29, editors at TV stations CBS 19 and NBC 29, cover this topic, please. Blair Kelly and Bill Chapman at the Seville Weekly, cover this topic, please. A developer an applicant is pursuing apartments for the tire plant in Scottsville. I'll give you history on the plant. From 1944 to 2009, the tire factory in Scottsville was the town's main economic engine and its largest employer. When the tire plant closed, the town tried to recruit another large employer to the site. But after years of efforts, failed attempts, no one came, and engineers eventually branded the tire plant building that's owned by Dr. Charles Hurt, a Virginia land company, as essentially a teardown. The scuttlebutt has asbestos all over the tire plant, and it's a structure that has not been taken care of, and that's putting it lightly. The applicant is proposing a renovation, a regutting, essentially a rebuilding of the tire plant for apartments in the building. The applicant is offering $200,000 to build sidewalks and trails in downtown Scottsville. The applicant is also offering native plants, dark skylight fixtures, electric car chargers, bicycle facilities, and a commitment to workforce affordable housing pricing. The applicant is also mindful of traffic concerns and is willing to work with VDOT and is currently doing private studies on traffic around the tire plant. There's a public hearing on the rezoning set for October 3rd. This is nowhere. It's nowhere in the news cycle. And it should be atop the news cycle. You take a building that's been around since 1944, almost 80 years, that was the economic driver of a town of 618 people, and you're trying to revitalize that building with apartments and to transition it from asbestos, forgotten, fallen down, disrepair, disarray, and making it homes for people. This is a story that should be covered. It should be covered. We should learn about this and know about this and follow it. And I want to give props and praise to Nancy Gill, the former mayor of Scottsville, for bringing this to my attention. Nancy, I love you. We're going to saddle up at James River Brewery and have a cold beer. And we're going to get you back on this talk show, your schedule permitting. No pressure, Nancy Gill, but you appear to be the only media voice in the town of Scottsville right now. No pressure. I've already highlighted auto repos are getting out of control. The repossession of automobiles in our country is starting to become a problem. Another thing that's becoming a problem are foreclosures. Have you noticed that, Judah? Another thing that's becoming a problem is evictions. Tenant evictions. Have you noticed that, Judah?
Well, now that the eviction moratorium is finished,
people are getting booted from their houses.
Sadly.
This is most notably happening in Abington Crossing in Albemarle County, where nearly 100 individual parties were evicted from the apartment complex in the last month alone. And it's no coincidence, and you set the stage on this topic, that boomerang kids are living at home with their parents again. The show is yours, Judah Wickower. Set the stage for all of us.
I mean, since the pandemic, I mean, it's hardly a surprise that a lot of people move back in with parents, grandparents. In some cases, it's parents moving in with kids. But the problem is that more than 2 years later, I think 2/3 of people that moved back are still there. They're just not moving out, and I don't think it's because they're just sitting there doing nothing. I think it's
They
inflation.
got no choice.
Yeah, it's just, it makes sense for people to, it's like you needing to pay your mortgage.
Yeah.
on your first house.
Yeah.
So what did you do? You got roommates.
I straight up tell this story all the time.
Yeah. And this
It's
is
not a bad. It's not something I'm embarrassed about.
right.
I bought my first place in my mid-20s, the villas at Southern Ridge. I was trying to figure out the exact time. I put this in the comments section. It was 2006. I bought it in 2006. The villas at Southern Ridge off Old Lynchburg Road. Real Estate 3 was marketing and selling these units. They were formerly an apartment complex. Bart Fry, the developer from Virginia Beach, bought an apartment complex and converted them into condominiums. 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms with a den. They were 3 different floor plans. Bart Fry took one of the units and turned it into a sales office, and there were a handful of Real Estate 3 agents selling the units out of this sales office off of Old Lynchburg Road. I bought in phase 1 of the first people in 2006 to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a den condominium overlooking the pool. I was so proud. I busted my ass in 2006. I was 25 years old. Busted my ass buying this thing. Bought the place, said, I'm going to live here, I'm going to build some equity, I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to do it again. At the same time of buying this place, I chose to launch a business nearly 15 years ago. 15 years, May 28th, next year, I will be self-employed. So quick math, help me with that. I launched my business in 2007, May 28th. You know what happened? 6 months, no clients. 6 months, no clients, Judah.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single one. The little savings I had, the padding, in case the you-know-what hit the fan. You know how you have a savings in case the you-know-what hits the fan if you're a homeowner? It went to $0.
Mm-hmm.
I was eating a double cheeseburger, my only meal of the day, because it was $1.03 and it was rich in protein. If I wasn't eating a double cheeseburger, I was going to the Pana Garden Buffet on Emmett Street. It's not there anymore. It was Carmelo's. It was a kebab shop. And I was getting the lunch buffet for $5.95. And when folks weren't looking, I had Ziploc bags that I would scrape the Chinese food into Ziploc bags. And that was food for a couple of days. That is a freaking true story.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to default on this mortgage. I was literally going to default on this mortgage. I went to my 2 buddies and I said, I have 2 extra rooms in this place. Market value for rent is like, at that time, $500 a room. I'll cover all utilities. Instead of charging you $500, why don't you pay $400? You guys get an extra $100 of savings on rent, and you don't have to worry about paying any utility costs. No electric, no cable, no internet, no water. I'll cover all that. These 2 guys, still homies to this day, were saving $250, let's call it $200 a month. $100 on rent, another $100 on utilities. That $800, they may not have known it at the time, they certainly know it now. That $800 a month I got in rent from my 2 homies kept me from defaulting on that mortgage.
Yeah.
If I hadn't have gotten that $800, I would have lost that place. It kept me from defaulting on the mortgage. Today, that place is a rental.
Yeah.
The first one paid off in the portfolio. Millennials and Gen Zers are living with the parents. Generational families, one roof, multi-generational, all contributing to the same household overhead. It's as common now as it's ever been. You see this in Europe. You don't often see this in America. A country that prides itself in manifest destiny. A country that prides itself in the gold rush and going from East Coast to West Coast to find a parcel of land and to create a legacy and a destiny for yourself. But that legacy, that destiny, that manifest destiny spirit has now been bottled and throttled.
It's not viable anymore. Between student loan bills, between housing costs, between the price of rent, it just...
Manifest destiny is not viable anymore, you're saying?
We've let inflation carry everything far beyond our ability to pay for it. Well, not all of ours, but for a large portion of America, it's just not the same world that it used to be. It's not the same America that it used to be.
When one parent could make the income for a family of 4 or 5?
Yeah. Now you're looking at families moving in together because
they have to.
You need a family to pay for
They have to.
What's on the horizon.
And maybe there's your solution. Maybe there's your life hack to the BOA lending program. You buy a house and you put a couple of families in it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's your life hack. Maybe that's what you got to do. And you know what? Props to you for doing it. I got no beef with somebody doing that.
Yeah, I think
technically,
if you got your entire family, if you got multiple generations into a large house on one of those loans, it'd probably be ideal.
Exactly. Props to you if you do that. There's your life hack. I don't know if BOA would ever market that, but that's your life hack. Put a couple of families in there if you want to keep it. And you're worried about maintenance.
Yeah.
What's the number from the boomerang story? The statistic. You got it? I got it here. You ready?
Talking about 67%?
67% of pandemic boomerang kids are still living with mom and dad.
Yeah. I just said 2/3.
Yeah. 2/3. That's according to Lending Tree.
Massive amount of
2/3 of the people, 2/3 of the millennials and Gen Zers who moved in with their parents during COVID are still living with their parents.
Yeah.
Think about that. 2 other topics. UVA beat Richmond over the weekend. Virginia Tech lost to Old Dominion over the weekend. Both coaches have similarities. First-year head coaches. Looking for some kind of identity. Both teams. The university got the win. UVA got the win. Virginia Tech took it on the chin. The Wahoos have Old Dominion in week 3. UVA travels to Illinois next week. The University of Virginia, if you were at Scott Stadium on Saturday, you saw a stadium that was 1/3 empty. The announced attendance was 40,000. That's BS. There's no way there were 40,000 people there. Tony Elliott, after the game in his post-game conference, said, "Fans, get to the stadium." Because all of us on the sidelines saw how empty it was, and it's demoralizing. I'm going to close with this because I have my traditional Tuesday conference call right now. Should the University of Virginia downsize Scott Stadium from 64,000 people to perhaps 40,000 people? If Scott Stadium was downsized to 40,000 people, would it be a much better look for the brand that is UVA football than a stadium that is 1/3 empty at 64,000? Virginia Tech sells out every game. The University of Virginia, when's the last time they sold out? You'd be hard-pressed to find that answer. That topic on tomorrow's show. For Judah Wickower, I'm Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille show on a Tuesday. So long, everybody.